Welcome back, everyone. Today we're taking a deep dive into the world of William Wordsworth.
And nature.
Right. His profound connection with nature. How he saw it as more than just a pretty backdrop,
More like a moral compass.
Exactly. We'll be exploring some of his most powerful poems, and we'll also be looking at excerpts from his preface to Lyrical Ballads to get a better sense of his poetic theories.
It's really fascinating to see how his ideas about poetry and nature are so intertwined.
So, Wordsworth, born in 1770, he grew up in the Lake District of England. I mean, talk about a picturesque childhood.
Yeah, surrounded by mountains and lakes and that incredible landscape. It's no wonder he was so drawn to nature.
The biography even mentions its beauty and solace had a profound impact on him.
Definitely shaped his worldview.
It makes you wonder, if he'd grown up in a city, would his poetry have been different?
Oh, definitely. I mean, the natural world was so central to his identity, it's hard to imagine his work without it.
Right. And speaking of his work, it was during his time in the Lake District that he collaborated with Samuel Taylor Coleridge on Lyrical Ballads.
A landmark collection, published in 1798.
Right, 1798. And what's so striking about Lyrical Ballads is that they deliberately used everyday language.
It was a radical departure from the ornate poetic styles that were popular at the time.
Yeah, it was like they were trying to make poetry accessible to everyone.
Exactly. They wanted to reach a wider audience to show that profound emotions could be expressed in simple, direct language.
And that idea of accessibility is so important to understanding Wordsworth's view of nature. He believed that nature could speak to everyone, no matter their background.
It's a universal language.
So, to really understand how Wordsworth saw nature as a moral guide, let's look at lines composed a few miles above Tintern Abbey. It was written in 1798, and it really beautifully captures the transformative power of nature.
Yeah, the speaker in the poem revisits the Wye Valley after 5 years, and being back in that landscape triggers all these memories and reflections.
It's like the landscape is prompting a moral inventory.
Exactly.
And there's a sense of time passing in that poem, how our perspective changes as we experience more of life.
Right, and you sense that the speaker has moved beyond just appreciating the beauty of nature, like a youthful, passionate connection to something deeper, more philosophical.
He even mentions the burden of the world
and
how nature provides a sense of connection to something much larger than himself.
It's in those moments of reflection when we feel overwhelmed that nature can offer a sense of grounding, like a sense of perspective.
So let's shift gears a bit and talk about the preface to Lyrical Ballads. This is where Wordsworth really lays out his theories about poetry, what it's for, and why it's so deeply connected to the natural world.
It's like a window into his creative process.
So in the section titled The Subject and Language of Poetry, he argues for using simple language, to express profound truths.
Right, and this was a time when poetry was considered very elite, full of elaborate language and fancy metaphors.
So it sounds like he's making a statement about who poetry should be for.
Oh, absolutely. He believed poetry should be accessible to everyone, not just a select few, and that the language of everyday experience, the language inspired by nature, was the most authentic way to express genuine emotion.
That he's democratizing poetry.
Exactly. And this connects directly to his view of nature as a universal source of inspiration and moral guidance.
Okay, and then there's the section, What is a Poet? Where he defines the poet as someone with, heightened sensitivity.
He believed a poet can perceive the extraordinary within the ordinary. Those subtle details in nature that others might miss.
So it's not just about describing nature beautifully, it's about revealing its deeper meaning.
Precisely. The poet helps us see nature as a source of truth and insight.
Okay, and then there's one of my favorite parts, this concept of emotion recollected in tranquility.
This is where Wordsworth really gets into the heart of his creative process.
Yeah, explain that one.
He believed that the most powerful poetry wasn't written in the heat of the moment, but rather it emerged from a process of reflection, of contemplation. Those powerful emotions we experience in nature, they linger in the mind, and it's through revisiting them in tranquility that they can be transformed into art.
So it's not just about capturing the immediate experience, it's about processing it, letting it simmer.
Exactly. And I think that process of reflection, it connects back to the idea of nature as a moral guide. Those emotions we experience in nature, they don't just vanish, they shape our values, our understanding of the world. They leave a lasting impression, like a seed.
A seed. That's a great analogy. Speaking of seeds and growth, one of Wordsworth's most famous poems, I Wandered Lonely as a Cloud.
The daffodils.
Yeah. It really shows how a simple encounter with nature can, completely change your outlook.
Written in 1804, it's a beautiful expression of pure joy and wonder.
I used to think this poem was pretty straightforward, but I'm seeing it differently now.
Oh, how so?
Well, he describes the daffodils as dancing and fluttering. It's like he's giving them human qualities.
He's personifying nature, blurring the lines between the human and natural world.
Right, and that connection he feels with the daffodils, it stays with him even when he's no longer in the field.
It becomes a source of comfort. He even says he revisits the memory in vacant or pensive mood.
It's a good reminder that nature can lift our spirits, even when we're far away from it.
And this idea of nature's lasting influence is also central to Ode, Intimations of Immortality, another masterpiece that explores nature's power to connect us to something bigger than ourselves.
This one's a little more philosophical, right?
It is. Wordsworth reflects on the passage of time and that sense of wonder we experience as children, that connection to nature.
Which we kind of lose as we get older.
Yes, but he suggests that nature can help us recapture those feelings, even if just for a moment. The beauty of the natural world can remind us of a time when we were more in tune with the divine.
Like nature holds the key to unlocking those forgotten parts of ourselves.
And then there's the solitary reaper. It shows how even a brief encounter with nature can evoke such profound thoughts about humanity.
Right, the speaker is captivated by this woman singing in a field. He doesn't even understand the words, but the melody itself moves him deeply.
It's the beauty and mystery of her song, against the backdrop of the natural world. That's what sparks this deep meditation on human existence.
It's as if her song represents this, perfect harmony between humanity and nature.
Exactly. Wordsworth finds meaning in the simplest things, suggesting that even the most ordinary moments in nature can have a spiritual dimension.
It's not all, sunshine and roses with Wordsworth, though.
Right.
He doesn't shy away from the darker side of nature.
That's right. He explores the full spectrum of human experience. And nature often reflects those more challenging emotions, like in The Thorn.
Oh yeah, The Thorn. That poem is haunting. So much loss and grief.
And the landscape in that poem, it's stark, desolate, almost mirroring the character's inner turmoil.
And that thorn, it's such a powerful symbol. Not just the harshness of nature, but also the, prickliness of moral questions.
The weight of consequences.
It reminds us that nature isn't always a source of comfort. Sometimes it reflects our deepest fears.
But even in its darkness, nature can offer a path toward understanding, maybe even redemption.
So it's about embracing the whole picture, right? The light and the shadow.
Exactly. Wordsworth saw nature as a mirror, reflecting the complexity of human life.
Okay. That makes sense. Finding meaning even in the toughest parts of nature.
And don't forget, Wordsworth believed a poet could illuminate the ordinary, like in Simon Lee. He sheds light on the struggles of a man who's lost his connection to nature.
Through age and poverty.
Yeah, and his decline is even more heartbreaking because it's set against the backdrop of the natural world, which keeps going, indifferent to his suffering.
It's a reminder that nature can be a source of both solace and this, stark awareness of our own mortality.
And speaking of mortality, We 7 offers a really unique perspective on death and memory, all within the context of the natural world.
Yeah, that one always struck me as a little unsettling. This little girl who can't accept that her siblings are gone.
It definitely challenges our assumptions about death. What's interesting is how her strong family ties, her connection to the churchyard, and her acceptance of death as natural, it all kind of intertwines.
And she finds comfort in the churchyard. Almost as if nature's helping her grieve.
That's a great point. The churchyard, a place we associate with death, becomes a place of connection for her. It's where she maintains a bond with her siblings, and nature plays a key role in that.
It's like nature bridges the gap between the living and the dead.
And her simple joys, like gathering flowers from the churchyard, they reinforce that link to the natural world.
Okay, so we've talked about some of those darker poems, but let's circle back to those that really highlight nature's ability to steer us toward a more moral life. Like lines written in early spring.
Ah, yes. Wordsworth's close observation of the natural world, the joy and harmony, even in the smallest creatures.
It's like he's telling us to really pay attention to the beauty around us.
He suggests that by reconnecting with that natural harmony, we might find a more fulfilling and ethical way of living.
And expostulation and reply kind of takes that idea further. It's this dialogue between two characters with different views on knowledge and learning.
One character is all about traditional book learning, while the other, who embodies Wordsworth's perspective, argues for the importance of firsthand experience in nature.
He's saying that true knowledge isn't just about facts, it's about, like, getting out there and experiencing the world, letting nature be your teacher.
Exactly. And then in the companion poem, The Tables Turned, Wordsworth really pushes that idea. He urges his friend to close his books and embrace the wisdom found in nature.
It's not that he thinks books are worthless, but they can't fully capture the depth of nature's lessons.
He even says, and I love this line, "One impulse from a vernal wood may teach you more of man, of moral evil and of good, than all the sages can."
Wow, that's powerful. He's basically saying that nature is the ultimate teacher.
It can teach us more about morality than any book or philosopher.
It's like he's totally flipping the script on how we think about knowledge.
He's challenging us to reconsider our relationship with nature, to see it not just as a source of beauty, but as a source of wisdom, a guide for living a more ethical and fulfilling life.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into Wordsworth, what's the key takeaway you hope our listeners will remember?
I hope they come away with a deeper appreciation for nature's power, not just to inspire us, but to shape our values, to guide our moral compass. Wordsworth encourages us to really engage with the natural world, to listen to what it has to teach us.
To let it be our teacher.
Exactly. And I think he'd want us to ask ourselves, what moral lessons can we learn from our own experiences in nature? How does nature guide us in our own lives?
That's a great question, one we can all think about as we head back out into the world. Thanks for joining us, everyone. And until next time, happy exploring.